Hello, students. I will be discussing the essay by Paul Prescott titled Shakespeare and Popular Culture. So, many of you have been asking me what are the important lines of the essay, what are the important questions. So, I thought of directly talking from the essay. So, here you go. Yes, Shakespeare and Popular Culture by Paul Prescott. Now, the author of this essay, Paul Prescott, he questions in the subtitle. Okay, this is the first subtitle: Shakespeare question mark popular culture. So he is placing these two terms, Shakespeare, okay, and popular culture alongside, side by side, and he is questioning that can we place Shakespeare in popular culture? Can Shakespeare become a part of popular culture? How it becomes? What is the process? So he gradually keeps on answering. Now, he starts with this question that, how can Shakespeare, Bard of Avon, icon of genius, highbrow, extraordinaire, with popular culture? How can you associate him with popular culture? And he out here brings in the debate of high culture and low culture, elite and the common culture, the mass culture, the low culture. Okay, so uh, Shakespeare's plays were consumed by elite society in the past. Okay, in Shakespeare's times, those his plays were consumed, were watched, were enjoyed by a mixed population. And without the support of the masses, without the support of the popular, his plays would not have thrived. So after Shakespeare, after Shakespeare's times, after Shakespeare's demise, his plays were mostly consumed by the elite society, by by those who wanted to cultivate the high arts, those who wanted to refine their understanding about life, philosophy, about about expression, how to express sentiments, okay, how to write, how to get the command of language, how to be more refined in expression. So they started to consume Shakespeare. Now, how Shakespeare permeated in the popular culture, this is the question that Paul Prescott is asking. He then asks if Shakespeare is deep and difficult, the typical products of popular culture are shallow and all too accessible. So he remarks that sometimes in the present times, people find Shakespeare too difficult, too elaborate. Then he feels that if Shakespeare is difficult for such people, for such audiences, then for such audiences, the products of popular culture, what are the products? Television, uh, online social media platforms, films, they are quite accessible. They are always, enabling us to decode the meanings. We don't have to spend much time, we don't have to spend our attention much on decoding the nuances, the the aesthetic experiences from Shakespeare's plays. And always remember that as audiences, any audience, be it the audience or readers of a poem, of whether it's the audience of a theater performance or play or film or novel, if the audiences are not spending much time, they are not investing much time in decoding, in interpreting the layers of meanings, the layers of messages that emerge from a text, then the aesthetic experience, the the experience from reading that text would not be enriching, would not be enlightening. So uh the products of popular culture today, like cheap TV commercials, then online social media platforms, certain films, they are offering you direct meaning. You are not investing much time in decoding the meaning. So that's why we are lacking the talent, that ability to decode Shakespeare, to understand Shakespeare's messages. Okay. So if Shakespeare is difficult for those people, then certainly, the products of popular culture have influenced their taste. Now, Shakespeare is everywhere in contemporary culture. This is the next thing he is saying, next important thing. Next important line is, yet Shakespeare is everywhere in contemporary culture. How so? Then he keeps giving examples. Shakespeare's face sells products and is familiar to millions, many of whom may never have read or seen his work. Any bald headed, bearded man need only don a ruff and grab a quill to be instantly recognizable as Shakespeare. So, this is how Shakespeare has become popular. His face has become so popular. His plays have become popular. We often keep quoting Shakespeare. Sometimes we don't know that we are quoting Shakespeare. Okay, many of Shakespeare's characters have been plucked from their plays to become freestanding cultural stereotypes of amorousness. So Romeo becomes, uh, the symbol of amorous love. When it comes to Hamlet, we know that Hamlet was renowned for his indecisive behavior, to be or not to be. When it is Lady Macbeth was known for her ambitions, for her lust for power to rule, and how manipulative she was. So when it becomes, when we want to attribute someone unfeminine, we call that person Lady Macbeth, or someone conniving, manipulating. Okay, because women can't have ambitions, so we call that person Lady Macbeth. So these characters have become symbols, have become icons in popular culture, representing certain stereotypical meanings. Then Paul Prescott keeps on saying that how storylines from films, science fiction, soap operas, all these have been occupying the space of popular culture, or Shakespeare in popular culture. Okay. Okay, now next is how Raymond Williams is describing culture. So Paul Prescott takes the aid takes the aid of Raymond Williams' explanation of culture. What is culture? So as time passes, culture changes with advancement, with technology, with social changes, with people's learnings. Okay, popular is not much more straightforward. The term popular is not very straight. It has evolved over the time. What was popular back 100 years from now is ancient today. Okay, and now what we have popular, like memes and social media platforms, these might be ancient after 100 years, or these might be very basic after 30 years or so. So the trajectory of popular was never straightforward. It has always been in evolution. Okay. Now, yes, next important thing is Shakespeare's position as a playwright who drew on popular theatrical and social traditions, and whose drama is filled with allusions to and representatives of the popular culture of his time. So don't think that Shakespeare's plays were all about kings and queens and counts. No, Shakespeare's plays gave space to voices belonging from the lower community. And Shakespeare's plays would not have thrived without the popular, uh, popular liking of the masses at that time. Okay, because theater was a popular form of art at that time. Nowadays we have films, okay, and film directors, cinematographers, producers, they are rich. They have a lot of money. They fall in the elite category. Okay, but we have certain film directors who represent the masses, who are subverting the idea of a hero. So just think from that context that similarly William Shakespeare was such a playwright who would be giving space to members belonging from all strata of society. There would be prostitutes also in his plays. Okay, now next thing, next important line that you should focus upon is, yes, what explicitly underpins a popular cultural studies approach is less controversial observation that the value and the meanings of texts changes from generation to generation, from place to place, between different social groups. Now, we have seen that how Charles Lamb and Mary Lamb, the brother and sister, they adapted the William Shakespeare's plays into brief tales. And what were their politics? They wanted to familiarize the young adults about Shakespeare's classics. And how at that time novels and short stories, these genres became popular, and theatrical exhibitions became less and less popular. It wasn't that popular anymore. So, with the change of time period, society, tastes change, tastes of audiences evolve, and they interpreted Shakespeare from renewed perspectives. Okay? So, this is a reminder of the contingency of our own readings of the texts. What are the different possibilities? What are the different directions of interpreting the original text or the plays written by William Shakespeare? Not written to be read by audiences, but written to be performed. And then the next important thing you should focus upon that there is a two-way relationship between popular culture and Shakespeare. And how so? Popular culture shaped Shakespeare's art, but Shakespeare's art continues to shape popular culture. So when Shakespeare was composing these plays, he was becoming a part of the popular culture. How? Because theater was at that time very much popular, very, very popular form of entertainment. And, Shakespeare's plays were performed at that time in palaces, in front of kings and queens and counts, and also in busiest, crowded streets, in brothels, or in small, affordable, cheap parlors where the masses would gather, would crowd. Okay, so Shakespeare's art was getting shaped by popular culture. Shakespeare was representing the voice of the masses, the multiple voice, the congregation of lots of characters, lots of opinions and voices at that time. And, uh, you know, royalty, patronage was very prevalent at that time. So Shakespeare's plays were mostly based on, how royal nobility behaved, how hatred filled their mind, how lust for power filled their mind, how monarchy could be challenged. Okay. How a bastard boy can become a king, how a bastard boy can challenge monarchy. Okay. How a gracious king can fall down from his throne. Okay. How, how fate reverses. So all these issues were very much popular at that time. So Shakespeare's art was shaped by popular culture of that time. But now what is happening? Shakespeare's art continues to shape popular culture. We are still getting impacted, influenced by Shakespeare's art. We are still quoting Shakespeare. We are still adapting Shakespeare. We are still translating Shakespeare. Okay. So and the moment when we are translating his plays, we are choosing several mediums. We are choosing films, we are choosing products of mass culture, the factory made goods like t-shirts, mugs, or utensils, or social media platforms, or cheap jokes, then even in pornography. So these are all meant to attract the popular audiences. And whenever these these goods, these products are produced to entertain the masses, to draw the popular audience's attention, there is financial gain involved. Okay. So we are still, you know carrying Shakespeare with us. Okay, now next. Yes, you can see out here I had underlined playwriting in early modern England was a popular form of art. Okay, so that's why Shakespeare thrived so much at that time. And also because, he got inspired, influenced by the, uh, Italian classics. Okay, now next thing. A common sense approach might recognize that artistic taste can be mysterious and does not always neatly correspond to social status. Formal education does not inevitably lead to intelligence. Posh people enjoy dirty jokes. A working class upbringing need be no bar to the understanding, enjoyment, or production of sophisticated art. It doesn't it is not necessary that some audiences pertaining to the middle class or lower economic section, or lower culture, low culture, they will be requiring a formal education, or they will need a great artistic taste. They can also enjoy Shakespeare, because Shakespeare's art is rooted in life's philosophy. There is no special intelligence required to deduce Shakespeare's messages, Shakespeare's plays. Okay, next. So then Prescott asks, what were his politics? Okay, any assessment of the ways in which Shakespeare's staged popular culture leads to the question, what were his politics? Why Shakespeare wrote in such a manner? Why Shakespeare showed the downfall of King Lear? Why Shakespeare showed anti Semitic sentiments through Shylock? Okay, so what were his politics? Now, next thing, Prescott says that, uh, you know, Shakespeare's plays were reinterpreted were critically analyzed by a critic under the name of Patterson, and Patterson said that his plays were proto-democratic, okay, and it depicted desires of early modern popular culture. Now, democratic, you all know that what is democracy? There is equality of all religion, all voices, everyone will have equal rights. So, this critic feels that Shakespeare's plays were inclined towards democracy. They gave democratic freedom to all the characters. Now, next important thing is the concept of carnivalesque. Now, Paul Prescott feels that Shakespeare actually, you know, Shakespeare's plays can be read from the perspective of carnivalesque. Now, what is carnivalesque? Mikhail Bakhtin developed this idea that, Dostoevsky, the novelist, he used to subvert the power relations. He used to rule out the head, the rationality, the logic, and he would indulge his characters in sin, crime, guilt, love, hate, and all sorts of emotions, like complete indulgement without any uh, any rational ability, without any law, without any rule. Okay, there would be complete subversion of order, law and order. So, Paul Prescott feels that this topsy-turvy is also observed, can also be observed in Shakespeare's plays. Okay, because there are certain characters which indulge in serious crime. Okay, in Macbeth, we see that how Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they reverse their own fate, they reverse their own destiny. Okay, and how Hamlet, knowing the consequences of his actions, still commits the crime. Okay, so there is complete indulgence in crime, guilt, sorrow, hatred, love, and there is also, inclusion of people belonging to all social community. Okay, there is no social hierarchy, there is no social order. So this topsy-turvy can be seen in Shakespeare's plays. Okay, then next question Paul Prescott asks, and through his questions he is answering that how the popular is staged or voiced today. Okay, and he feels that Shakespeare has been canonized, placed at the pinnacle of Western high culture, but all these, have been transformed, and these transformations have been occurring because of the changes in culture. Okay, so William Shakespeare during his time would not have imagined that his plays would be read by us. His plays would be converted into brief tales. His plays would be converted into films. His plays would be all over, his quotes would be all over from, the quotes from his famous characters would be all over on the internet. Now, next important thing you should focus on, that the culture industry. Okay, what is the culture industry that Paul Prescott is talking about? So there is a concept of mass culture, and mass culture represents the factory made products consumed by the masses, and the not only just the factory made, but those products that are made to entertain a large number of masses. The same product repeatedly sold. The memes and the jokes and the, say, popular products like t-shirts, okay? Then let's talk about how Shakespeare's quotes are being used um, you know, in day-to-day life. So all these things are being, they are being circulated repeatedly. They are being sold repeatedly again and again. There is no newness. The same thing is being consumed again and again, okay, through the culture industry. Then, now there is a difference between Shakespeare's postmodern popular culture consumption and Shakespeare's consumption in the past. How Shakespeare was consumed in the past and how Shakespeare is being consumed in the postmodern popular culture. So, by postmodern popular culture means all the cultural equipments, all the cultural apparatuses that are being circulated in the 21st century. Next, now, then Prescott asks, how do we determine cultural significance? How do we measure popularity? How can we measure Shakespeare's popularity? Then Prescott keeps giving some data that what was the popularity of Shakespeare in the 1990s and 2000. Okay. Then he says Shakespeare is popularized, but popular also partakes of the prestige of legitimate high culture. So those people belonging to the, 21st century, the audiences that belong to the 21st century, they consume Shakespeare in a certain way. They, when they consume Shakespeare, they enjoy the status of belonging to the high culture, because Shakespeare's association with high culture will never end, because Shakespeare's dialogues, the dialogues that he had written for his characters, the richness in his philosophy, the richness in his diction will always be considered to be very posh, very sophisticated, very niche, refined. Okay. Then Shakespeare's quotes, then his wisdom is also being converted into music. So Paul Prescott gives the example of an hip hop artist, Akala, and Akala has been composing raps on William Shakespeare. Then there are many sites on YouTube that keep on talking about William Shakespeare's quotes, plays. Okay. Now, Prescott ends by this question that is there a homemade Shakespeare? Is there a certain group of people, or is there a certain audience or composition of people who would be representing Shakespeare? Who should represent Shakespeare? Who has that right to represent Shakespeare? How far that community, that group, or such people can represent Shakespeare? Okay. So these are the questions that Paul Prescott asks us to deliberate upon. That, you know, who should represent Shakespeare? Now, students, this is, this is a cue to these questions, and the cue to the and the answer to these questions is every person who is acquainted with Shakespeare's plays can represent Shakespeare. Every person who has consumed Shakespeare's plays and is aware of the social and cultural time period in in the early Tudor period of England can represent Shakespeare. All those people who feel that Shakespeare's plays can be revised, reinterpreted, translated, you know, placing them in the present sociocultural context can represent Shakespeare. Now, those who represent Shakespeare in the popular culture today, do they give their own authorial voice? Do they become, you know, authors as well? While representing Shakespeare, how far are they remaining truthful to the original play? How far are they remaining or doing justice to the characters? Because you have seen that William Shakespeare's plays, when it is translated, adapted, meanings get lost. Okay, there is a lot of loss in meanings, in authenticity of characters, because we keep interpreting from our own perspective. In order to avoid that, you know, that falsity, that inauthenticity, we should get to know the times of Shakespeare, the cultural period of Shakespeare, and read, understand, equip us with Shakespeare's original plays. Okay, so that's all. I hope this lecture will benefit you in your understanding of this essay. Thank you.